We're going to talk with Paula Rebolledo, who is with Ministry and British Council in Chile. And this is, I expect many of you have heard of this project perhaps already. So we're going to be, and we've talked about it before at IATEFL conferences, so what we're going to be doing is a little bit different. It's not talking so much about the approach that we've developed, referring you to some resources for that, but we're talking about taking stock after 4 years of a particular project in Chile. And this is our plan. So this all started in 2013 with a workshop here in Santiago. Quite a lot of teachers came to this. The idea was that, it was an idea from the British Council, Tom is there at the back, it was his idea. We should have a project which would be an alternative to top-down in-service training, which in his perception had failed in many cases. That it would involve engaging, enhancing teachers and agencies to develop themselves with others. This was a sort of goal which I was invited there to lead the workshop. We jointly agreed on. They do, the teachers secondary, this is secondary school teachers, so that's just something quite unique about this project. Also the number of teachers who were initially involved is quite, I think, quite unique. We have reported on the first year in a book published by the British Council, edited by David Hayes, which is called Innovation in Continuing Professional Development. And we should say that we, as we write in the article, we kind of made it up as we went along, because I think it was approved quite late, and we together with Tom, and also a lot of discussions with Paula, who was there at first as an observer, later as a very, very involved mentor and leader of this project. We developed something we later called, we came to call exploratory action research, because the name action research was there from the beginning. We didn't have much choice about that. But it was a Ministry of Education and British Council joint project. It always has been. But the idea was we would definitely want to find something that would be feasible, realistic for teachers, not an added burden to them in kind of difficult subjects of large, but relatively large classes, to 40 children, high number of teaching hours, lack of time that teachers have. And we were, I think, to some extent influenced by Dick Allwright's exploratory practice ideas, that you should build in inquiry into the normal way of teaching and not impose extra burdens. So part of that for us was to emphasize the importance of exploring a situation, an issue, before you start to think about how to change it, bringing maybe ideas from outside, but as much as possible, developing the ideas for action from the context, from the exploration, spending a lot of time exploring. And we from the beginning, and I think more and more, have found ways, we think, of presenting teacher research to teachers in ways which get away from any kind of academic jargon. We don't even use words like data. We tend to say things like evidence, trying to, just in terms of the words we use, and more providing examples from teachers' own practice, from other teachers who've done this. So we did decide to call it research, not inquiry. That's one suggestion. And from the beginning, there was an idea that there must be mentoring, and that's absolutely important. But I think the ways that we decide to do mentoring have developed in an interesting way over time. So I'm just going to talk about the first 2 years. I was very involved in the first year and the second year. First, the idea was we would have university-based mentors because they are experienced in research. We moved the second year to the idea of teachers, school-based mentors, including Paula, was one of them. Chileans, not expatriates, who were experienced and knew the context. And that was a development which came out of the first year due to the need for knowledge of the context. We started with Moodle email, but teachers didn't use those. So we realized actually we need more face-to-face, called Skype, email, and not email, but phone, much more closer to what they were doing, and Facebook as well. And we had a very flexible design. That's a nice way of saying we didn't really know exactly what we were going to be doing, but we were flexible and learning from experience. So that I think that was a big factor we were able to change things. And one way we changed was to have much clearer expectations, more of a plan that we could show to teachers in the second year. And at the end of the second year, we collected another interesting thing was we didn't put a pressure on teachers to write a report. That was one thing we came to realise, that was a very stressful idea for the teachers. Instead, we found ways of teachers presenting posters to one another as the audience, and then recording the mobile phone video of their presentation, which they took of one another, transcribing it at the workshop, and then using that as the basis for their final reports. So it was, again, teacher-friendly approach. And we used those as the basis for a book where you can find out more about this project, published by the British Council. And you can access it via that link, which is the link for the actual project. I was going to talk about the developments in the third and fourth year.
I don't know how I'm going to do that in 4 minutes, but good luck with that. Okay, in terms of the development of... 12 minutes? That much? Oh, great. The project continued, as Richard said, initially it was pretty much based on mentors based in universities, and then it moved into school-based mentors, and then the expectations were changed a little bit in terms of what we were trying to do with teachers throughout the year. What happened in the third year of the project, in cohort 3, is that we started to provide additional support to teachers because they say they needed additional support, particularly with data analysis activities and ideas, so we provided additional webinars. And also we gave them the opportunity to provide short presentations at conferences. This was something that came up as an idea because there was a new network of Chilean researchers organized, and we organized a conference. So they were featured there as the main speakers of that conference. So they had an opportunity to show them what they have developed. And then later on, we realized that it would be very difficult for them to continue developing the project in the second semester, because usually, at least in our part of the world, the second semester is it becomes pretty short. It's very hectic and crazy. So that's why we decided to change all the project to the first semester. And we also started using the stories of the book as the backbone of everything that we were doing. So we were showing that as examples. When you're learning about research, what is usually common is for teachers to feel the need of examples. So what is exactly that I need to do, how it is that you get to do this. So by using the stories, they could see what they were going to do throughout. And then currently, what is happening now is a new change and development of the project. Our initial involvement decreased as years went by. And what happened now is that former champion teachers, what we call champion teachers, became the leaders of the project. So what you saw here as teachers being, as mentors being university-based mentors, then teachers that had worked in the project in cohort 1 became mentors, and more started to become involved. So because they had been through the process of experiencing the initial workshop, this year, the last workshop only happened last week. The teachers that had been through the experience a number of times already became the workshop trainees. So this is a moment when we completely left and we took more of an advisory role, and we let them take ownership and leadership of the project. Richard?
Just to quickly show the numbers involved. That initial workshop, well, that was a large number, but actually the number who registered for the program, for mentoring, 39, 30 completed. That was a pilot year. Anyway, we're quite happy with the numbers completing in subsequent years. I think we're very high. Dropout is often considered to be part of such a project. I think that's the quality of the mentoring and the commitment of the teachers, really. This year, well, we're not sure because they haven't registered yet, but it's just starting for a
But
fifth
200 teachers registered for the initial workshop.
Expanding. We felt, and British Council also agreed, and Ministry, it's a good time to take stock of what's been happening. I mean, I think it's a surprise in some ways that it has continued for this long. So, we decided to do this. We've analysed the final reflective writing of the teacher's report, reflecting on the experience. We've set out a questionnaire, and we've done interviews with about 16 of the teachers, 4 from each year. We're going to the questions we had in mind. What impact, if any, impact and difficulties, impact on teachers and on learners. And analysing, we're not going to share the questionnaire findings. We got the responses back too late to analyse properly. But we're going to report on reflective writing and the interviews. So from reflective writing of teachers over these 4 years, thematic analysis themes which emerge seem to be that the experience has challenged their assumptions, previous assumptions about learners. They do develop an appreciation of this particular teacher research approach here, exploratory action research, as we come to call it. Quote there. The theme emerging again is empowerment, sense of agency. Well, that emerges very strongly from the interview, so we're going to have to quote a quotation from that a bit later. And impact on learners, according to the teachers. They did perceive an enhanced engagement, participation on the part of learners, and better relationships. I think both of these are, this is an example, just an example quotation, both of these are inside this quotation. So in this case, the enhanced engagement participation is probably related to this teacher's particular focus, which was to enhance appreciation, enhance participation, but that was actually the focus of many teachers' research. They felt motivation was a factor of participation, and probably that's why it's coming out so much. But the better relationships is interesting, because I think that's got very much to do with the approach adopted. Exploring that situation means getting feedback from the students, getting students' perspectives on a particular issue. Simply by that happening, as has been reported with exploratory practice, that can help to ameliorate, improve a situation on its own, and particularly the relationship that there is with the teacher. So they feel important and responsible for their own learning when they see that the teacher cares about their interests and needs and values his or her work. Now, that's a bit ambiguous, that the teacher values, does it mean the teacher values their own work, or does it mean the teacher values the student's work? Because it's writing, we can't really tell. But of course, interviews, you can negotiate the meaning. That's why interviews do have their strong value.
In terms of the interviews that we conducted, we asked the help of an external researcher to do this. We were just afraid. We were afraid that if I did the interviews, for example, I would get biased answers. That they think they had to answer what I wanted to hear. So we prefer to call an external researcher to do the interviews. We planned to do 20, so we managed to do 19. And we interviewed teachers from the 4 cohorts. 2 teachers who had dropped out, that initially registered, but then throughout the project, they started thinking that it was too much for them. 2 mentors, and then returners, champion teachers, meaning people that returned to the project or people that couldn't continue doing it and then they went back to it. And then we try to have people from either Santiago or the extreme regions. These are the main findings, these are the main themes that we got in terms of challenges. Again, the issue of time and the workload that they have. They feel that they have a lack of support from the school because it's very common with English teachers that they are the only ones carrying like the innovation bandwagon all the time. And then peer recognition, their peers or colleagues say, yeah, it's all very nice, but I'm not interested. So they fell into that as well. In terms of benefits, it was again professional development going on. it's interesting to mention that the initial motivation for them to get into the project was improvement. Sometimes the notion of improvement is downplayed by new visions of teacher research. They say that understanding is more important than improvement. Well, these teachers enter the project because they want to improve. So even though there's an element of understanding there, they are there because they want to improve their practice. They became very self-aware about their own practice. It strengthened their relationship between teacher and student, as Richard said. It was elements of empowerment. In terms of facilitating factors, it was mentioned by all teachers practically that the one important thing was the mentoring scheme, the fact that it was a school teacher and not a highly experienced researcher, somebody that they could relate to, but somebody has been through the process of the experience. The fact that the approach was practical, was manageable, was feasible. And then as suggestions, they would like for the project to become more institutionalized, meaning for the school to be, for the whole school to be completely on board with the project. Just to show you a number of quotes in terms of sense of agency, I'm going to read that one because I listened to that and I thought it was very interesting. They say education is bad because of teachers, but this is a way of saying, wait a minute, I know how to do my thing. We innovate and the problem persists. We do our part, we go, and you go and research. I am researching. I know where my weaknesses are, and I'm reconstructing my practice. I am reformulating myself. So she's kind of calling all the people out in terms of innovation and solving problems. My colleagues know that you are on this path, and it is not something like, oh, okay, I already did it. They continue to do it. It is like a behavior that one adopts. They do not continue saying, oh, these children were misbehaving. No. You analyze what happens in your classroom. It is part of your everyday daily work now. They say that it's a mindset now, that they engage the practice differently. And then this is another goal that proves that they feel that this approach is close to us, that it's not highly academic. I think we are running out of time, but just to take a stock and to reflect, just to mention a couple of things. The teacher research approach that we adopted embraces and challenges the difficulties. We are not afraid of them. We don't shy away from them. We address them, we acknowledge them, we challenge the difficulties, and we play along with that. It's for teachers with teachers. We want them to be part of it and take ownership of the process. We stress that it's research. We don't want to avoid the word research. We don't like the euphemism of inquiry or any other term. It is research, and it's a way of us to prefer to give an additional element of professionalization on that. As I say, is understanding and improvement at the same time. And then our support became less and less and less necessary as time moved on because teachers started to take more ownership of the process. This is the project now in terms of progression. Is the fifth cohort now is again a joint venture, and teachers are taking more leadership. And would you like to take? Would you want to take over this? Okay. Do you want me to read it quickly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let them watch it.
Would I be able to say on that? Okay. No. Just say mainly. We are very concerned about this, which is the issue of lack of institutionalization. But we are very glad to say that we propose the Ministry of Education that the stories of teachers we're translating into Spanish. They're going to be translating into Spanish, and with that, we are going to show the book to the Ministry of Education, and that book is going to hopefully reach other teachers, other subject teachers. And the handbook is going, a handbook of this approach is going to be written by Richard and I soon. And we hope that again is going to be used to spread out the word about the expansions.
Seems that people in other teacher education in other places are adopting this sort of approach, which we're happy about. And this is part of what today is. There is some interchange going across content. So I think we'll end there. Thank you. And,